Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Love your work.
Thank you so much for having me.
Donna's a huge fan of you.
Always a pleasure. We have two beautiful Peter Max portraits in our studio here.
They're nice, really nice.
Right. It's time for another one, something new. We got to talk about it this weekend.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, the Statue of Liberty series, very, very famous from you. What was your inspiration for that?
Well, I started painting my first big Statue of Liberty in 1976 when they had the tall ships. And they were, I live on the Hudson River. Actually, looking out the window right now, I can see the whole river. And I had a huge canvas on the wall, a white canvas that was just there, 8 foot tall, 4 foot wide. And when the tall ships were in the river, I thought I was going to draw and paint them. I did that for a few minutes, but they didn't look so tall to me and special. So I said, hey, it's 1976, the bicentennial. Let me paint Statue of Liberty. So I painted a big Statue of Liberty. I loved it so much that next 4th of July, my friends, my guys who work with me said, hey, Peter, why don't we do it this 4th of July again? Let's paint the Statue of Liberty. So I painted 2. And then the next year, 3, and so forth. By 1981, I was up to 6. And 2 days, maybe 8 days before I was painting them, 8 days before July 4th, I got a phone call. I'm walking down. I live in a duplex. I would walk down a circular stairwell, and my assistant says to me, Peter, I've got Nancy Reagan on the phone. And I go, yeah, for sure. Must be somebody kidding around.
Wow.
But when I picked up the phone, it was really Nancy Reagan. And she said to me, aren't you painting 6 this year? I says, how do you know that? She says, well, the people who stayed over from the Carter administration told us that you paint one every year, and you're probably up to 6. How would you like to paint them this year on the White House lawn?
Nice.
I said, oh, my God, what a nice invitation. Thank you. I would love it.
Yep.
Make a long story short, I sent the 6 paintings to Washington real fast, late that afternoon, and by truck. And about 3-4 days later, I arrived in Washington on July 4th, early in the morning, and got into the White House. And on the White House lawn, they built a platform for me. They have a huge garden behind the White House. When you face the White House from the street, behind it is a huge garden, must be 500 feet long, 1,000 feet long, maybe more. And I started painting. And Ronald Reagan was his very first 4th of July, because he got in January.
Yes.
And this was just July, so it was like 3, 4, 5 months later. And he had about 600 guests. 300 of them were Washingtonians, and 300 were all his buddies from Hollywood. Like Frank Sinatra was there, and all kinds of unbelievable, Dean Martin, all kinds of amazing people.
How fun.
And I started painting, and I painted all 6 Statue of Liberties. It was a huge deal. It made all the news everywhere, everything. And when I came home 2 days later, a young man showed up at my house with the right credentials. He was a professor in the university, and he claimed, and he was a real expert, everything about the Statue of Liberty. And he told me that the Statue of Liberty is falling apart, that she won't make it to its 100th birthday. Now, this is 76, and the birthday, and this is now 1981,
81.
right?
Uh-huh.
And when Reagan just got in, and he said by 86 she's not going to make it. Their piece is going to be falling apart one after the other. It's going to happen any minute. That's what all the scientists are saying. So I didn't know what to do about it after he left. I thought, this is not something I can handle. I wouldn't even know where to start. But I saw my little white phone on the windowsill, and I dared to call 202-202, which is Washington, 555-1212, and I asked for the White House. And I got Nancy Reagan on the phone.
You did?
And, and she thanked me for coming there. And I told her how the Statue of Liberty is falling apart, and that I'd like to maybe get some aid through the White House to guide me what to do. So Michael Deaver calls me, who was the press secretary of Ronald Reagan.
Yep.
And he said to me, listen, thanks for being here this past weekend. We loved it. Everybody talked about it. It was the highlight of Ronald Reagan's party, you painting for everyone. And I said, well, what do you think I should do? He says, you got to go to the private sector. And I was so nervous. I said, what does that mean? He goes, corporations. So after I hung up the phone, I was absolutely sure this is not for me. And I just gave up on it. And I put on a TV set. I had one of those large-screen TVs, the old-fashioned rear view, those big, large, fat
like a projector,
TV sets.
Projectors,
sure.
yeah.
And a big story was on there, like on some side channel, nothing big, was not even CBS. And it was a black and white film, and suddenly I realized it's a story about the chairman of Chrysler, Lee Iacocca. And I go, private sector. I know somebody who works in the same ad agency that advertises Chrysler. So I called up my buddy. Make a long story short, I spoke to the chairman of his ad agency. He was an old friend of mine that I've known him since art school days. Now he's running this billion-dollar agency. And I told him that I thought, and he said it would be perfect for Lee because we're launching a campaign called Buy American. And so I hung up the phone, and 3, 4, 5 minutes later, I get a phone call from Lee Iacocca's secretary saying that Mr. Iacocca is going to be in New York tomorrow morning, and he would love to meet you. Can he meet you at 11 sharp? I said, sure. She says, he's very punctual. Please don't be late. I says, I can't be late. I live here. So anyhow, next morning, I send out one of my little ladies who works for me to get, muffins and all kinds of stuff. So I had like enough for 5 people. And it was all ready for Lee Iacocca. At 11 sharp, my doorman rings me and he says, there's a Mr. Iacocca here. And he comes up and he walks in and he goes, hey, Peter, how you doing? This is Lee. And, like a real dynamic guy. And he said, first words out of his mouth was, so what do you think it's going to cost? I said, Mr. Iacocca, I have not a clue. He said, I bet you it's over $200 million. And he said, where's your phone? And I said, right over here. It's the one I called Nancy Reagan on yesterday. And he picks up the phone and he cups it with one hand and he looks at me and he says, I'm calling Coca-Cola. And he makes a phone call and he called, hey, hi, bud, it's Lee, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. He said to him, listen, I'm here with the artist Peter Max. He's pioneering this, getting the Statue of Liberty fixed. I'm going to join him in it. And I want to hit you up for $1 million. How do we do on that? And he goes, thanks, I'll call you later. And he gives me the number 1 sign, meaning $1 million down.
Oh,
this
my
was all in
goodness.
like less than like 1 minute. Then he calls up Strobeer. Same conversation. I'm here with Peter Max. We're launching a campaign to get the statue fixed. Can I hit you up for $1 million? I'll call you later. The guy, he gives me the number 2 sign. And then he called one more. I never knew who that was. One day I'm going to ask him who the third caller was. And he raised, in 3 minutes, $3 million. And then he sat down with me, and we just chatted. And he said, we got to have something to give everybody that gives me money. So I said, listen, I just painted the 6 Statue of Liberties at the White House. How about I make nice reproduction posters, 6 posters that are maybe, 15 inches wide by 30 inches high. He says, great idea. So I go to press about 3 days later. I print the posters. And in a few years, like 2 years, he raised $260 million.
Wow.
And the Statue of Liberty in 1986 was brand new. Can you imagine that?
Wow. What a great story. I just want you to know that third caller, by the way, that was me.
That was Donna. Yeah. Don't tell anybody.
Hey, listen, always glad to see you come down to South Florida. In fact, you're here so much, you should just get like a part-time home here, don't you think?
I should. I'm going to be where am I going to be? At the Wentworth Gallery, right? At Town Center Mall.
In Boca.
Mm-hmm.
In Boca on the March 13th, this Friday, right? This Saturday, from 6 to 9.
Right.
And then I'm going to be in Las
Olas
Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale on Sunday on the 14th from 12 to 3.
The thing I like about your appearances is people get up close and personal with you. You kind of mill about the crowds and stuff. You do a lot of nice signings. But the back of the painting is my favorite part where you do your doodle.
Yeah, every time someone acquires a piece, whether it's a little piece or it's a big piece, I turn the piece, as you know, face in to the wall, and I make a nice drawing for the owner of the next piece. And then they also get a book called The Art of Peter Max. By the way, if any of the fans come, there's enough time from Amazon or you go to Barnes & Noble Borders, pick up the book. I sign it for free for anybody who shows up with the book. And so I love my fans, and they can always go to petermax.com, right, and see where I'm going to be. And I can't wait to see you.
Okay,
it's going to be great, Peter. Thank you so much.
A pleasure.
All the best.
Safe travel as you come down. We have beautiful weather for you this weekend.
Can't wait to see you.
It was supposed to be bad, but we ordered it up good because we knew you were coming.
Thanks, my sweetie. Thank you, my buddy.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Peter.
Peter.
Great talking with you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.